ना 2 मिनट रेस्ट लेंगे. स्टार्ट कर दिए. Good morning. Good morning, all the students. So, like yesterday, we have discussed with the important question from your second year, that is your first chapter, characteristics of developing economies with special reference to India. So, I hope you all have gone through that one because it is a compulsory question, right? And today we are going to discuss with the remaining questions of the first chapter. Like today, we are going to discuss with difference between economic growth and economic development, as well as some of the important VSAQs of this chapter. Okay, so here when we are doing the first chapter, you will be having like chapter 1, you will be getting 1 LAQ for 10 marks, 1 SAQ for 5 marks, right? And 2 VSAQs, which is 4 marks. So this SAQ optional question means you will be getting 50-50 chances are there, but we will revise that one, which is very easy, which is useful for your VSAQs also. Okay, so LAQ we have done, characteristics of developing economy with special reference to India, as it is a compulsory question here. Okay, right. So now let us start with our SAQ, that is difference between economic growth and economic development. So this is the question which is having 5 marks weightage question. Basically, a few years back, they gave this question for 10 marks also, right? So before going to the in detail here, first let us see what is economic growth and what is economic development. Economic growth. Growth means what here? In general, when we see in the country, the income levels are increasing. That means the national income is increasing, GDP growth rate is there. Then we call that so-and-so economy is having economic growth. Okay. So economic growth means we can say here increase in countries. Economic growth is increase in countries' real output. Country's real output means what? Whatever the production in the country is going on, that production levels are increasing. So real output is increasing here. So real output of goods and services. This is called as economic growth. Means we can measure, we can see quantitatively. Means if our national income or GDP increases, then we say economic growth is there in the country. Now, when we discuss about economic development, development means what? Here, development means it is not where we cannot measure them, like overall changes in the economy. Economic development means overall structural changes in the economy. This is called as economic development. So simple difference between growth and development you see. In growth, we can measure, means how much increase is there. Whereas in development, we cannot measure, but we can see how much development is there in the country. Okay, this simple concept you remember difference between these two, then we can write down the differences easily here. Growth means when there is a continuous increase, right? Numerically, in numbers, when we see the increase in numbers, we call there is an economic growth. Development means numerically we cannot measure, but we can observe various changes and all we can observe in the society. That is called as economic development. Okay, now let us see the difference between economic growth and economic development. So just I'm dividing the page, right? Economic growth, economic development. Okay. So what is the meaning here? First, economic growth means what here? It is increase in countries' real output of goods and services. Means our output is increasing in the country. Then what is development? Not only economic growth, but also the progressive changes in the socio-economic structure. So economic development, not only economic growth, but also overall changes in socio-economic structure, of the economy is called as economic development. Clear? So what we are finding here, when we say growth, output is increasing. When we say development, our complete social and economical structure is changing over here. Okay. Now, see the next difference point over here. So, our economic growth is a single dimensional. Why we say single dimensional? Because we take only values. We take only the measurable terms. That's why it is a single dimensional. Only from income levels we find growth. Whereas our development is a multi-dimensional. Multi-dimensional means what? Multi-dimensional means what? Various aspects we see. For example, in India, if we talk about Indian economy, in Indian economy, growth is recording. Yes, by seeing our GDP. As GDP increases, growth is recorded. But we also find society. Society-wise, we find people are developing. People are getting various facilities available to them. People are developing in the sense when they have access to all the facilities like education, health, transport, communication, when they have all these facilities available to them, then we say society is developing. Economic development, socio-economic means income-wise, people's income levels are increasing, per capita income levels are increasing. We can observe Now all the people are using modern technology items. Everyone are having all the basic necessary facilities with them. So throughout the country, we can find various changes over here. That is called as development. Means that's what we say. It is multidimensional. Multidimensional means what? We are seeing from various dimensions. Whereas economic growth is single dimensional, only from one point of view, that is from income level we will see. Okay, the next one, here it explains about quantitative changes in the economy. Our economic growth explains about quantitative changes. Quantitative means what? How much income is increasing, right? How much our national income increasing? How much value of goods and services increased? How much output we are doing? Everything in a quantity, measurable terms. So here we say it explains about the quantitative changes. Whereas economic development explains about both quantitative and qualitative changes. So in development, what we are saying? Quantity as well as quality. Means what? We are saying increase in the income levels of the people, that is per capita income level is increasing, people's standard of living is increasing and all. Quality wise also, they are getting better education facilities, they are getting better health facilities. So these all we can say quantity wise over here. So that way we can say economic development explains quantitative as well as qualitative changes. One more point of difference over here. Government may or may not interfere. Means in our growth process, government may or may not interfere. Why? Because when in the country, when production is going on, it is your responsibility whether to increase your production or to decrease your production. It is up to you. Government will not force you, right? So government may or may not interfere. Whereas in economic development, government intervention is must. Why? Because to change the quality, like we said, qualitative changes, to make any changes in the society, government should be interfered over there. Now, any new technology or proper transportation is done in the country, now we can see, earlier in India, we used to travel from one place to another place around, like it will take lot of time. But now because of the roads, national highways, or within the city, if you see, metro rail is there or flyovers are there, which is helping us to go faster, to move easily. Means in transportation, development is there. That is helping to improve the quality of life of the people. So for that, government interference is required over here, right? So that way we say economic development happens with government's interference. Whereas development, growth happens, government may or may not interfere here. Right. Next point of difference. Economic growth occurs when there is more technological progress. Technological progress means what? As you use new technology, new technical product or new machinery you get, you can increase your goods and services, you can increase your production. So as you use new technology, growth will be recorded. Whereas higher level of economic development helps in improvement of quality of life of the people. Development helps in improvement of quality of life of people. So another difference we can find here, when the growth is happening, when we have advanced technology. When the development is happened, when there is an improvement in the quality of life of the people. Got the difference here? See, growth means what? When the country's real output is increasing. What is development? Not only output increases, but also there are changes in the socio-economic structure of the country. And economic growth is a single dimension. Why single dimension? Because only from income side we are seeing. It is a multi-dimension, not only income, but also we see what are the facilities they are getting, how is their standard of living, how is their quality of life and all. Growth is includes a qualitative changes. Development we can observe by seeing qualitative and quantitative changes. In growth process, government may or may not interfere. It is not compulsory for the government to interfere. Whereas in economic development, government intervention is must. Okay. Growth, we can observe the growth when there is a technological process. How can we say that there is a development? By seeing the improved quality of life of the people. Okay. Next, a few more points of difference we can see here. Same thing continue. So as it is a 5 marks question, you can write around 7 to 8 points. So what is the next point of difference over? What is the next point of difference over here? Here we can say economic growth is a narrow concept. Why it is a narrow concept? Because it is seen only from the income side in the country. Only like based on the income, how they are changing yearly, based on that we can say that growth is happening. Whereas economic development is a wider concept. Why it is a wider concept? Because not only income, but we are also seeing how the people's standard of living is there. What is the quality of life they are living? Along with that, are they getting all the facilities? Is there any changes in the society? From various things we are observing the development concept. So economic growth is a narrow concept because only income is considered here. Development is a wider concept because many aspects are considered over here. Okay. And we can say economic growth is related to the short term. It is a short term concept. Why it is a short term? Why it is a short term concept here? Because in like yearly, for example, yearly, this year in the country GDP has increased 6%. Next year GDP increased to 7%. Easily we can say there is a growth in the economy. Means short term. Within now I want to increase the GDP. Yes, do more production, increase the GDP. So there occurs the growth. So in short term we can achieve the growth. But economic development is a long-term concept. Right? In India, when you observe all the changes, it has not come within 1 year, 2 years or something like that. We have observed these changes from past 50 years, 60 years, 70 years. It has taken for our country for development, right? Because whatever the changes we are doing in the country, this cannot be done in the short period. We have to do the changes in the long period. People should get used to that. So that's why we say it is a long-term concept. And economic growth is relevant to developed countries. Why? Because in developed countries, already development is done. Means why we call them as a developed countries? Because already they have all the necessary facilities for development. And this economic development is relevant to developing economies. Why they are relevant to developing economies? Like India. In India, still we are developing few items, like if you see in transportation, we can find various changes they are getting in the transportation. Now recently our road and transport minister, they have said national highways are increasing to have the easy transportation from one place to another place, right? So that way, all the development is still going on. Now our education system is going to change, right? So these all changes, still we are in the developing process. Still more development is required. That's why economic development is relevant to the developing economies. Okay. So only these points you remember from this answer will be completed. So you can see total 8 points we have discussed. Increase in country's real output of goods and services, not only growth but also overall changes in the socio-economic structure of the country. Growth is a single dimensional, development is a multi-dimensional. Growth relates to quantitative changes, development not only quantitative but also qualitative changes. Economic growth, in growth process, government may or may not interfere. Whereas in economic development, government interference is must. Okay. And in economic growth, how we can observe there is a growth? When there is a technological progress, we can observe there is a growth in the country. Development, when there is an improvement of life of people, we can say there is a development in the country. Okay. And economic growth is a narrow concept because it is dealt only from the income point of view. Whereas economic development is a wider concept because not only income, we also see the quality of life. Means what facilities they are getting, what are the things, how is their standard of living. From various points, we observe this development. Economic growth is a short-term concept because continuously 1 year, 2 year, our income is increasing. We say growth is recorded. Whereas development is a long term. In 1 or 2 years, we cannot develop, right? That is not possible in the short term. It takes long time period, like 10 years, 20 years, like that we can take for the development. And growth is relevant to the developed countries because already development is done in the country, like USA, UK and all European countries, we can say their already development is done. So they calculate growth. Whereas developing countries like India, China and all, they will go for development because there are still certain development activities that has to be taken place. Clear? So this completes your 5 marks question. Just go through this one. This completes your 5 marks question. From these only you can, now this difference is for 5 marks, right? Or only growth for 2 marks, only development for 2 marks. When they give it for 2 marks, you have to write any 3 points. Any 3 points, like for example, they asked economic growth. What is economic growth? It is an increase in country's real output of goods and services. It is a single dimensional. It shows the quantitative changes in the society, or any other point. Any point from this you can write here. Same development, not only growth, but also overall changes in the socio-economic structure of the country. It is a multi-dimensional, quantitative as well as qualitative changes are taken, and it is relevant to the developing economies. Like that, you can write down any 3 to 4 points here for 2 marks. Clear? So this completes your economic growth and economic development. Your 5 marks answer. So next we are going to discuss with the VSAQs of this chapter because we are going to get 2 VSAQs. In that already we have discussed with economic growth and economic development. Remaining questions we will discuss now. So now coming to the VSAQs. After economic growth and economic development, we have one more question, that is self-reliance. Self-reliance means what? Standing on one's own leg, means not depending on other nation. Okay, so self-reliance means it is nothing but standing on one's own legs. That means what? Not depending on others. So it is important for every economy to achieve self-reliance. Why it is important for every economy here? Because if we depend on other country, again, their domination will be there in our country, which we don't want it. For example, India, though India is having so many resources in the country, still because of illiteracy, because of lack of money, we used to depend on other nations. So that's why Britishers have come and they have occupied and they have ruled our country. But after independence, India tried for self-reliance. Means they don't want to depend on any other nation. For example, for production of the goods, we need not go to other countries. Like when we discussed India is a developing country, in foreign trade orientation, we have discussed primary goods are exported, finished goods are imported, right? So what is happening there? Means we are not self-reliant that time. What our government is doing? India trying to make the products in the country itself. So we can say India achieved self-sufficiency in food grain production. Food also we need not depend on, we used to depend on other countries. So India has achieved food grain self-sufficiency in food grain production, and also they have achieved self-sufficiency in capital goods and all the industrial products. So this completes your 2 marks answer. What is self-reliance? Self-reliance means standing on one's own leg, right? Means we ourselves are doing all our things, not depending on other nations. Like we can say, yes, here other nations. Okay, and India achieved self-sufficiency in food grain production, capital goods production, and industrial production. For any of these products, we are not going to depend on any other nation. That is called as self-reliance. Okay, this is first 2 marks question. Next one. Next question is sustainable development. What is sustainable development? Sustainable development means meeting the needs of present without compromising for future. Without compromising for future. Means what? Sustainable development. We need development in the country. That doesn't mean utilize all the resources now itself, and means if we use all the resources now only, nothing will be left for our future development. So we should meet the needs of present as well as we have to meet the needs of the future. This concept is called sustainable development. Means whatever the limited resources are there, those limited resources should be used in such a way that we can use them for present consumption as well as for our future consumption. This concept is called as sustainable development, right? Then Next concept we have, that is inclusive growth. Inclusive growth means what? Including all the marginalized sections of the society. You can just see the simple term here, including all the marginalized sections of the society which are excluded earlier. Means what? Here, when we used to calculate our national income, we used to consider only certain industries or certain people, right? Some marginalized sections were there. For example, small scale units or cottage units or handicrafts and all. We were never used to calculate the income from that in our national income. But our resources are utilized by those units also. So the inclusive growth concept is what? When we calculate, growth means what? Real output in the country. When we calculate the real output, real value of goods and services produced in the country, we should include what are all the sections of the society which were excluded earlier, right? Like small centers, small handicraft centers, or small scale industries or cottage industries, where their values are not included in the national income. Now we should include that in the national income. That helps us in the growth process, because our resources are utilized by all these units also. So that concept is called as inclusive growth. Okay, then next concept we are going to study, that is HDI, Human Development Index. Human Development Index. How we calculate Human Development Index here? Human Development Index is used to calculate the country's overall achievement. As the name itself says, development. How much of overall development is there in the country, that we can calculate in this Human Development Index, right? Here we can say Human Development Index is it is a modern indicator in the economy, modern indicator which shows the development, overall development in the country, which is measured by using, how we measure Human Development Index? By using life expectancy, right? It is measured by using life expectancy, literacy, and per capita income, right? These are the three factors we consider when we calculate Human Development Index. Human Development Index is a modern indicator which shows, overall achievements in socio-economic activities, overall achievements in the socio-economic activities. This can be calculated by life expectancy. Life expectancy means how many years the person can live. That depends on our health facilities in the country. If we have better health facilities, our life expectancy will be high. If our health facilities are not good, our life expectancy will be less. Okay. Literacy is means literacy helps for like to get the better labor or skilled labor we can get by education. If we have better educational facilities, then we will have literacy rate. and per capita income also. So income, how much income levels are there? This shows the standard of living. So here we can say life expectancy shows the health conditions in the country. Literacy shows the education facilities in the country, and per capita income shows the standard of living of people in the country. This is how we have, means these are the indicators that shows there is a development in the country. Clear? So this is our Human Development Index. Then next one we are going to discuss is the vicious circle of poverty. Right. Next question is vicious circle of poverty. What we call as vicious circle of poverty means poverty. Poverty means what? Low income. Simple concept you see here. When the income, when low income is there, obviously demand will be low. Yes or no? When our demand is low, there will be low investments. When there is low investments, low productivity will be there. When the low productivity is there, it results in low income, right? Low income of the people results in low demand, or we can say low savings. When our income levels are low, demand will be low, because as a consumer, when we do not have proper income, we demand less commodities, or our savings level will be less. When our demand is low, obviously when there is no demand, why we invest on those goods? We don't invest. When savings are low, we cannot invest also, so our investments will be low. And when the investment is low, our productivity will be low. As the productivity is less, again income is less, means low income results in again low income. This circle of poverty is called as vicious circle of poverty. It is a serious problem in all the developing economies. That's why poverty is causing poverty again. That's why every developing economy is trying to remove the problem of poverty. So this is vicious circle of poverty here. Then next question we have, that is capital formation. What is capital formation? How we form the capital? Income is converted into savings. Income is converted into savings. These savings are converted into investments, right? Whenever we earn income, that income is converted into savings. We save some money. After meeting all the expenditure, we save some money. That savings, we will use it as investments. Okay, so that concept of income converting into investment is called as capital formation. In India, why we have low capital deficiency? Like as we have seen the feature of developing country, as our income levels are low, our savings will be low. When the savings are low, investments are also low. Investments are low means what? Capital deficiency. Okay, this is called as capital formation. Then the next question we have, that is marketable surplus of agriculture. Marketable surplus of agriculture means, as you can see, surplus means what? Excess production. when in our agriculture, there is an excess production in our agriculture, we can sell them in the market, means our extra production in agriculture is useful for marketing, means we can sell them or we export them to the other countries, which will help our country to earn more income. So, marketable surplus in agriculture. Marketable surplus in agriculture, excess of agriculture output is required for subsistence living of the rural population. Okay, so that is marketable surplus over here. And what else questions are there here? Next question is human capital. What is human capital means what? Investment. Investment on human. In what way we are investing? Capital, human capital means investment on health and education. Investment on health and education to improve knowledge, and skills of labor or human beings, we can say, right? Human capital means what? Capital is what? Investment. Where we should invest? For human beings, for development of human, we are using the investment. So we can say investment on health and education to improve the knowledge on and skills of the, okay, instead of labor, we will just write it as people. Because if we have skilled people, if we have knowledge people, technically skilled people, we can use them in our production. That means our output increases, we can achieve the growth in the country. So for that reason, human capital is required. Okay, so what do you mean by human capital? Investment on health and education to improve the knowledge and skills of the people. So these are the VSAQs of your first chapter. Just go through the VSAQs along with the SAQ and LAQ from this chapter, because this chapter has more weightage. You can see. Right. Okay. We have discussed with our economic growth and economic development, right? Your 5 marks question. Go through these points once. So if we complete this one, we can start with our next chapter, economic growth, economic development, and all the other VSAQs from this chapter. Self-reliance. Self-reliance, every developing country tries to achieve the self-reliance because they don't want to depend on any other nation. So even India is also trying hard for self-reliance here, right? So India also achieved self-reliance from the all the programs what they have done from past, means from the time of independence. Self-sufficiency is achieved. Sustainable development, meeting the needs of present without compromising the future. Meeting the needs of present without compromising the future. That is called as our sustainable development, right? Then next, inclusive growth. Inclusive growth, in our growth process, we are including all the marginalized sections of the society which are excluded earlier. Means like small scale industries or cottage industries which were not included in the growth process. Means their goods values, the goods and services values are not included. Those are included in the growth. Okay, that is inclusive growth. HDI, very, very important one. Human Development Index, it is a modern, you can write it as modern income indicator. Because income also we can see here, it is a modern income indicator which shows overall achievement in socio-economical activities. So how we calculate Human Development Index? Life expectancy, literacy, and per capita income. So life expectancy shows the health facilities in the country. Literacy shows the education facilities in the country. Per capita income shows the standard of living of the people in the country. That is Human Development Index. Means based on these three factors, Human Development Index is calculated. So it is compulsory. Every country should calculate Human Development Index. Depending on that only, we can see these developing countries, developed countries and all will be calculating this. Then next, vicious circle of poverty. Circle of poverty. Poverty is what? Poverty means low income. Low income results in low demand, which results in low investment, which results in low productivity. If income levels are low, obviously it results in low income only. Capital formation. What is capital formation? Income is whatever the income people are earning, or in the country the income is earned, they will be converted into savings. Means we save our money in the banks. Those banks will give the loans. Loans are taken for further production, right? That is what? Income converted into savings. Savings are converted into investments. That is capital formation. Next, we have marketable surplus of agriculture, excess output in, you can see this one as excess output in agriculture, helpful for increasing population in rural areas. So why we excess production when we are doing in agriculture? It will be useful for increasing population in our rural areas, right? Mostly the people are not having proper income and all. So when we do excess production, that will be sufficient for increasing population. Human capital is what? Investment on health and education to improve knowledge and skills of the people. When we have knowledge people or when we have a skilled labor, obviously development happens in the country. Clear? So this is all about our VSAQs from this chapter. So from this first unit, as we have completed our first unit, what are all the questions you need to prepare here? So chapter 1, that is our Indian economy, first LAQ. You are going to prepare, that is characteristics of developing economies with special reference to India. With special reference to India is your LAQ, compulsory LAQ, which we have discussed in the previous class. And Your SAQ is distinguish between economic growth and economic development. Right? This is your SAQ and all your VSAQs. VSAQs, what are the VSAQs here? Again, your economic growth, we have discussed that one. Economic development, right? Development is what? Overall changes in the socio-economic structure of the country, right? Then we have self-reliance. What is self-reliance? Standing on own leg, right? That means not depending on other countries. Next, sustainable development. What is sustainable development? Meeting the needs of the present without compromising for the future. Okay? Sustainable development. Next, inclusive growth. Inclusive growth is what? Including all the marginalized sections of the society. Okay. Next, human capital. What is human capital? Investment on education and health to improve the knowledge and skills of the people. That is human capital. After human capital, we have HDI. What is HDI? Human Development Index. It is a modern income indicator which shows the overall development in the country. Because as a developing economy, we have to calculate Human Development Index. How human development is happening? On what basis we can find out the human development here? Development in the form of health, education. If we have better health facilities, obviously we don't fall sick, right? We can work effectively. And if we have education, if we are educated, knowledge helps in efficient utilization of the labor. Okay, then standard of living, to know what standard of living the people are having, their per capita income. All these three are used to measure Human Development Index. Now, after this Human Development Index, again, we have one more question, that is vicious circle of poverty. What is vicious circle of poverty? Circle of poverty: low income, low demand, low productivity, low investment, low productivity, and again results in low income. Then capital formation. Capital formation, where income is converted into savings and that savings are converted into investment. Next, we have marketable surplus of agriculture. Excess output in our agriculture will help for increasing population. So these are the questions you have to go through from your first chapter. So compulsory LAQ, right? This SAQ is an optional one, but if you read that, it may help for your BSAQs. But 2 SAQs are compulsory from this question, from this chapter. So this complete, these all questions as we have discussed, it will be useful for you. Just take down these questions, just go through these questions. So here, these are the questions from your first chapter. If you need these questions, you can just take it. And in next class, we are going to start with our second chapter. Second chapter also, again, you have your LAQ, SAQs and VSAQs. So important questions we are going to discuss. So whatever the questions we have completed in the first chapter, prepare for that. Okay then. So this completes your first chapter. Tomorrow, next class, we are going to start with our second chapter. Okay then. Thank you.